Hi, welcome along to Barbecue Life, where great barbecue doesn't have to cost a fortune. Today we're cooking my favourite thing to cook when I was 16. So that's right, today we're going back to my adolescence. So I moved out of home when I was 16, quite young, and money was tight. So I had to make the best out of my rather small budget. So if I was looking for something really naughty and really nice to eat, then I would cook what I refer to as a burger sandwich. So that is what we're going to go through today. It's quite a simple cook, but it's just a really nice memory to revisit. So I've already got my Kamado lit today. We've got the coals all banked up to the front, and this gives us a nice 2-zone cooking for what we need to put into this sandwich today. So I'm going to go straight in the indirect zone with some onion rings. So you need 4 onion rings per sandwich. So I'm cooking a few sandwiches today, so you'll probably see a few more onion rings going down. But we just want to put them in the indirect zone for about 4 minutes, and then we're going to flip them over in that indirect zone and again for another 4 minutes, and then we can get a bit of colour on them towards the end, bring them over to the direct zone, get a bit of colour on there, firm them up nicely and move them back into that indirect zone where they're just going to keep warm. Or if you're worried about them getting too hot, then you can always take them off. So mine did start to get a bit too hot towards the end, so I did whip them off before I got through cooking all of my burgers. So while they're on there cooking, we need to get our burger patties made. So I'm using 80-20 mince today, so that's 80% meat to 20% fat ratio, and this helps the burger really stick together. It does create a bit of smoke when you're cooking, so if you're worried about a lot of smoke, then you can cut that down to a 12% and it will still stay together, but you just won't have quite as moist a burger. So we're going to get them made. Now I do this really easy. You want to not overly work your meat. So we've just got all our meat broken up, and I kind of get it into a loose meatball where I then squish it down, and then if I've got any sort of scraggly lacy bits around the edge, I tuck them in, and then I push down a bit more, and I tuck them in and push down a bit more until I've got a nice thin patty with nothing really sticking out the edge that is going to fall off and not get used. So we've got that made. It's easy to make these on greaseproof paper as well, and then you can always make them ahead of time, keep them in the fridge, and if you do put them back in the fridge, they will firm up better than if you was to make them and cook them straight away. So our onion rings are cooking away nicely in that indirect zone at the back. As I say, we've got a nice piece of colour on there. So next thing we need to do is we need to toast our bread. So the reason that I used bread in this recipe was because burger buns was just another thing to pay out for that I didn't think I was going to get any other use out of. As you are aware, if you freeze burger buns, the top tends to flake off them as well. So I was just trying to keep my budget as minimal as possible. So I was just using plain white bread. It's before I moved over to 50-50. So we're just going to get 2 slices of that on, and we're only toasting one side. So this is just the same as if you were toasting your burger bun. You don't toast the outside of those, we only toast the inside. So we get them on, toasting off. They don't take very long to get a nice bit of colour on there. And we're going to take them off, and with our bottom bun, we're going on with the Laughing Cow cheese triangles, or Dairy Lee, whichever one it is that you're familiar with. So I always use the Laughing Cow, and in my childhood home it was always referred to as cow cheese. And my girlfriend, who she was when I was 16 and now my wife, she used to laugh at the fact that me and my brother referred to these little cheese triangles as cow cheese. And when I needed the shopping list for this particular video, I wrote on the shopping list cow cheese, and it did make us both chuckle. So we're going to get these Dairy Lee triangles onto the bottom, just get that nicely spread out, and then our top bun we're just going on with simple tomato ketchup, or you can go ketchup and mayo mix, but I only ever used to use ketchup because if I was buying something else then it was outside of my tight shopping budget. So we've got our bread prepped and we need to go on with our burgers. So we've let these sit in the fridge just for a little while, or you can, as I say, you can make them up and put them straight on, which is what I did today. So we just go straight on, direct over that side of the grill where we've got our banked charcoal, because we want a nice hot heat on there. At this point it is probably best that you take your onion rings off. I left mine on before while I was cooking, and mine did start to char a little bit, so if you just want to get them off onto your plate, they're still going to keep warm because these burgers aren't going to take very long to cook. So we're just letting the direct heat up on the top of these burgers, and we're going to leave them for about 2.5 minutes. Open the lid and have a look, and if your juices are starting to pool on the top and you can see that the side of the patty is starting to cook up, so it's starting to get a darker brown rather than your ready sort of meaty colour, then now you know that it's time to flip. Now, because we're using that high fat content, when we do flip you are going to get a big flare up, but it should be over quite quickly. If you do have a massive flare up while doing it, then just get the lid shut and the flames will die back down again. So as you can see, I've got that pooling on the top and we just want to get it flipped. So we flipped it over, nice big flare up, looks nice on the camera. And as you can see, it died straight back down, and we want to get our cheese onto the top. I'm just using normal cheddar cheese from a normal block because, again, that's how it would have been when I was cooking it as a teenager. What I'd have probably actually done as a teenager is I would have that top slice of bread that I'd put the ketchup on, I'd put the cheese on top of that, whacked it back underneath the grill, and melted that cheese that way, because that's generally the way I used to do it. And when I was cooking the burgers at home, I would have been cooking these under the grill. I wouldn't have been cooking them on the barbecue, because a barbecue was a massive luxury to be having at that point. I did have a grill, but I didn't use it very often back in those days. So we get that lid shut again, and our cheese is nicely melted. We can take it off. So what we need to do just before we take it off is one of our patties, just take your spatula, push it straight through and chop it straight in half, and this will become clear as we start to build. So we've got our bottom slice of bread ready with a nice Dairy Lee cheese on there, and we're going on with our complete patty up in one top corner, and then our two halves of patty, you put one down the bottom and the other one just kind of fills the gap. It does overlap slightly, but it just means you've got a bigger bite of meat in that piece. And when I was 16, I was using cheap frozen burgers, so when you cut them in half, everything fitted onto the bread much better. Now I know that I've got to use better quality meat, it doesn't fit quite so well. So on top of that, we're going on with our 4 onion rings, just one in each corner, and then we can crown it off. We cut it in half, and you can see a nice cross section through the middle. So I understand that this isn't a extravagant burger, it's just something from my childhood that is really nice to recreate. If you've got the stuff, if you've just got bread and you've got some onion rings in the freezer and a bit of meat, you can knock this up and still make yourself a really nice little naughty thing to eat without having to spend a fortune. So we've got it all ready, now it's time to give it a bite. So I'm just going to dig straight in. So that's just reminiscent of my adolescence. A little bit naughty, a little bit dirty. Not quite as cheap as it would have been originally, where I'd have been using the frozen burgers, as I said. But we've taken what it was and we've upscaled it by cooking it out on the grill rather than underneath a grill, and just added them extra flavours in while keeping it as traditional as I possibly can. So if you like what we're doing here at Barbecue Life, then please do subscribe to the channel. Make sure you leave me a comment underneath, let me know what you think, or if there's anything you'd like me to cook. Thank you very much for watching.